Hello, people of Earth, and welcome to another episode of the Just for Giggles podcast. I'm your host, Aubrey Friedrich, and I don't know if it's that noticeable, but if I look a little crazy today, I didn't do my hair, no makeup, a little tired. Who's to say I probably won't take a nap after I'm done here? We're gonna see what happens. I really need to get a good sleep schedule going. It's like really bad. But nonetheless, I really wanted to tell you the absolute like hell on earth experience of a weekend I just had. I say just as if it's not Wednesday. But anyway, I just I have a couple other side stories that I wanted to say before I get into all that. I was at the dentist the other day, and at this point in time, the dentist had just walked into the room, and I had two hygienists in there. I don't know, dentist office is a little crazy, and I must have said something. Whoa. And the dentist was like, "You are like the freakishly, what is going on with my voice? Y'all hear that?" Let's take a sip of water, shall we? Everybody grab your water nearby and let's do this together. Okay, we're a little bit better. I still sound a little goofy. Whoa. We're just going to try. But he was like, "You were like the freakishly perfect combination of your parents. Like, you can tell that yeah." And I was like, um, okay, I don't really know what to make of that. And he was like, "You have like the sayings of your dad and like the side profile of your mom." And I'm just like, I don't I don't know, what am I supposed to say to that? Um I guess. I mean, a family just has like its own separate language. Like, I don't know. But all is well. Nonetheless a little goofy. I spent the last like 2 or 3 days. Well, I finished it yesterday. So I still want to say 2 or 3 days. I watched Girl Taken, and it was the craziest psychological thriller I've seen in a long time. If you are interested in like crime related shows, I feel like you'd like it. Um, there was not a moment where I was like bored from the show. Like constantly like nail biting on the edge of my seat type of feeling, because it's about like a girl getting abducted by her teacher, blah 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 blah. It There just ends up being more and more plot twists that it just almost hurts your soul to watch. Like, it makes you see life a little bit differently. I feel like there's a lot of media out there that makes you do that, but it was like hard to like not be on the verge of tears at any given moment. It was just like insane. It was like it's like the two like main characters are like, well, one could argue that they're not per se the main character. Anyway, the two like girls, because there's a set of twins, they are not biologically twins, but they just happen to be two sisters that look freakishly similar, and they're probably really close in age. And all of the acting in the show was so phenomenal. It makes you almost wonder or like think that the actors are like they have that persona in real life. So you like, because it's just portrayed so well. It was never a dull moment within that show. It was so good. I don't know if I could bring myself to watch the whole thing again. Who's to say I won't? I don't know. I might. This is actually a thought I've been contemplating for maybe like close to a week now. I think I might start watching Criminal Minds again. I don't know. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. We're gonna see what happens. I've also been needing to watch Landman because I hear everybody around me like hyping it up. So we're gonna see what happens. I probably will watch it. I'm not sure if I'm gonna like it as much as I've liked other shows that I've seen, because I've been seeing like ads or trailers for it. I don't know. Maybe those are a little bit misleading. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try. It's gonna be fine. But anyway, for the crazy weekend, like, well, Granted, it is Wednesday now, so it's not as like big and crazy in my mind as it was. And a lot of the details have like started to blur together. So right now it's just one big anomaly in my head. And I'm gonna try and explain it the best I can and tell the story as correctly as I can, but I probably won't do it justice. So just bear with me. Bear with me. Okay. So Friday, this entire story revolves around things that happened at the bowling alley. So I pull up and it's Friday. I don't remember whether I clocked in at 5:30 or 6 because it's Friday and Saturday. I clocked in one night at 5:30 and the other at 6. Doesn't really matter that much. But I really didn't know what to expect going into that shift. But I pulled up and it was busy. Busy, busy, busy. There was like a couple like places having like work parties where like, all of the employees and maybe even like their boss or something showed up, or just like different groups that were all there. And then there was like groups of friends or like people celebrating birthdays or just recreational things like that. Plus there were people who were just at the bar, or there were people that were there to just play pool, stuff like that. It was so busy, and I was there by myself in the kitchen all night long, not a single ounce of help from anybody else. There was nobody on the clock, no, nobody like on the schedule to help, because there was a kid working at like the bowling counter, as we call it, that pretty much just like gives people like their lanes and their bowling shoes. And then we had a separate bartender, and my boss slash the owner is there like every day. And you'd think he'd, at least come to check and see how things are going. Nope. I was by myself the entire night. And it was really, really busy. Like we were pushing like close to an hour wait on some food because that's how bad it was. And there was even like a long wait for lanes. It was really, really bad. And I had people come. It got to the point where people were coming up to me to check on their food. And I was like, I didn't say it like this, but I was like, listen, buddy, this is what was going on in my mind. Listen, buddy, if you use your eyes, you can see I'm the only person back here. If you also use your eyes, you can see the mass amount of order tickets hanging up behind us. And also, anytime somebody comes up to the register, I have to take my eyes and my attention and my time off of the food that is cooking or needs to be cooked to place that person's order. And there'll be times where people will come up to me just to get a drink, just like a fountain drink. So I have to take that takes like a whole like 2 minutes or whatever, because I gotta grab the cup, put the ice in it, fill it up. Pop is fizzy. Newsflash, pop is fizzy. So I have to wait for the bubbles to go down. And then I have to go and fill it again. And sometimes even a third time. And then I put the lid on it and give it to them. And sometimes those people order more than one drink. Or those people who turn around to ask me silly, stupid questions. Like they'll ask if they can have quarters. There's a quarter machine right over there. Use your eyes. There's people who ask me where the bathrooms are. I go to take them there because the bathrooms are, in fact, in stupid places, specifically the women's room. But you know what? It's fine. And I can't be between all of the appliances at once because we have a pizza oven, we have a convection oven that really only gets used for breadsticks. And I don't even remember if this night breadsticks were made at all. And then we have the fryer and fryers, plural. And then we have the grill. And there's a lot of things that I have to go into the freezer to grab. I have to go into the walk-in cooler to grab. Like literally use your common sense and your voice of reason and just some thoughts of deduction, and you're going to understand why it's taking as long as it is to get your food in front of your fat face. Anyway, I mean, they weren't being rude and they weren't like yelling at me, but it was just pure annoyance because them even coming up to me to ask was only putting them behind further. It just really, really irked my chain, you could say. Oh my gosh. And something else I hate is that when people are at the counter, granted, I turn around to check and see if there's somebody at the counter probably close to every 2 minutes. Like, if you can see me if I'm not in the kitchen, I'm either in the bathroom or going to ask my boss a question or something like that. And more often than not, it's because I have to use the bathroom. Like any other person who eats and drinks. If what goes in must come out. Like duh, 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 duh. Anyway, You can see me standing in the kitchen working on food. Understand that I will notice you and I will come and take your order or answer your question. Just give me a frickin' second and I'll be there. It's like, have some patience. Y'all ever go through a drive through and they say, just a moment, and you wait for like a minute so they can figure themselves out? You ever show up to a restaurant and you see that it's really busy, or you go up to the host stand and they tell you that it's going to be like a 45-minute wait until you can get a table? You have the choice to leave if you want. You always have the choice. So you can go ahead and leave me alone. But anyway, they'll be standing at the counter and they'll have either their dollar bills or they'll have their card and they'll be tapping it on the counter. I understand you want me to notice you, but there's no need to do that. There's no need to do that. It's so annoying. It is so rude. Or like another thing in the world of distractions, there is like a little stand but in like on the counter where you can like buy a candy bar or a bag of chips, and every single time you want to get one of those, I have to take your $1 or $2 and push it into the said system. Another 1 to 2 minutes gone. Okay, glad we've discussed that. Anyway, comes time to close, mass amount of dishes. Like it came down to the point where I was out of the dishes that I needed. Like I was out of like the pizza trays or like the little pizza scoopy things. I don't know. Anyway, I'm closing. Massive amount of dishes. There's crumbs. There's sauce everywhere. I go to grab the vacuum. I don't know like what happened to the vacuum we normally had, but there was this crusty green one that I had to use suction on that thing. Horrible. So I did the best I could. I was probably vacuuming for at least 5 whole minutes. And you guys might be thinking that's not that long, but think about it. Think about it. It was probably close to 10 minutes even. It was like actually so bad. So bad. And then I left and there was like 40, actually I'm really bad at quantifying things, which is why I guess on time, but there was just a big fat pile of cigarette butts in the middle of like not necessarily the doorway, but under the little canopy that's over the door. Like you couldn't put it off to the side. It was literally in the center. Or like you could straight up just not smoke. It's not good for your lungs. But I'm not one to judge, and not even to mention, actually no. No. We're going to move on to Saturday. Saturday rolls around and I knew we were having live music. I knew we were having live music that night. So I knew it was going to be busy. I show up and I swear on my life, I probably had like the last parking spot in the building. And just to make life even better, I walk in and I don't know what was going on, but my eyes were like immediately like they were just like crossed. Like I couldn't see anything straight. And I was genuinely concerned. I was like, if this doesn't get fixed, I am probably gonna have to send myself home. Or we are going to be in for like quite the night if I decide to stay. Like this is going to be bad. Thankfully, it all figured itself out eventually. My boss from the salon ended up showing up, but I figured she was going to because on like Friday while I was at the salon, she asked like when I was working, and I told her naturally because I was like, I work Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Nice, right? Nice. Thankfully, there were four of us in the kitchen. I mean, there's only two of us that really knew what they were doing. Well, two of us that really know what we were doing because it was me and one other girl that really knew what was up. Again, still literally awful. Literally awful. By the end of the night, like I still had to split my tips with everybody else. I still left with a new tip record of $53. So, period. I clocked out, I think, at midnight. I had so many like burns and blisters on my hands and on my like arms. On just my right arm. Nothing really happened to my left forearm, but like I was just in pain, and then having to wash that like large amount of dishes again. Not fun, not easy, difficult, literally so frustrating. But the night slows down cuz like I think the band was there until 11 and I clocked out at 12. And I think I asked the bartender on Sunday when I went back like what time she left, and I think she said 2. And she said me she told me that her and Mr. Bossman were gonna do more, but they just decided that they were really tired and it wasn't super urgent, so they left. But anyway, it's maybe, I don't know, 11 o'clock. It's probably a little bit after. I don't really know because it all just kind of blurs together. And I'm making what became my last order of the night. It was 2 tacos. No problem there. Not hard to make at all. And I hear like either footsteps or just some. I know that there's people at the counter behind me. So I turn around and I'm like, what can I do for you guys tonight? And I can tell almost immediately that there was more alcohol in these gentlemen's systems than what there reasonably should have been. One of them was probably in his 50s, drunk off his butt. But thankfully, they were both funny drunk. Anybody in this story that I'm about to tell was funny drunk. And then the next one I learned was 24 because I, of course, asked because we spent probably like 15, like 20 minutes just chatting and getting to know each other just for fun. Just for fun. We were all laughing. It was fun. And, we were shaking hands. I was just messing with him mostly. And this 55-year-old guy, I shake his hand and he quite literally takes my hand and kisses it. Oh my gosh. The only thing going on in my mind was I need to wash my hands now. I need to wash my hands now. And not to mention, later, he does it again. I don't know how he ended up with my hand again. It might have been because one of them noticed I had big hands. So then, like, the children that we were holding our hands up next to, like, on top of each other. I don't know. I don't know. My hands weren't bigger than either of them or anybody, but it's fine. And another one of their friends, because I learned that it was like a work party that they were all at. One of another people in their party came up and he was directing this comment towards said 55-year-old guy. This is going to be a really hard story to tell if I can't like name drop. And if I give them fake names, then it's just going to become confusing in my head. Imagine, oh my gosh, imagine they like find this story. Oh well, it's the truth. But he comes up, directs this comment towards said like 55-year-old man. He's like, "What? You struck out with the bartender? You just had to come over here?" I was too stunned to speak. I was literally laughing so hard. Nothing ever happened, trust. And then he leaves the building. But then we just keep messing around and said old guy was like, "I went to like the private Catholic school, blah 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 blah." And I was like, so did I. And he's like, oh, you went to this school, blah, 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 blah. I was making fun of like the little bit of the rivalry that was between the two schools. And I was just standing here laughing. And then at some point, another guy shows up. I learned that he was 22. Um, why are their ages relevant? I don't really know, but I learned them. They asked how old I was. I told them to guess because I love hearing people's answers when I ask. And for once in a long time, they were right. They were like 18 or 19. And I was like, yeah, I'm 19. I'll be 20 in April. Period. Oh my gosh. And the 55-year-old, the most drunk out of these three gentlemen. Like, he probably woke up on Sunday, horrible headache, was probably vomiting, probably didn't remember much of the evening, sloppy as heck. It was so bad. The 22-year-old guy was somewhere in between, not as drunk, but I don't know. And then the 24-year-old one was, I mean, obviously you could still say drunk, but he was definitely probably just going to wake up with like a hangover, but still have his he was probably going to wake up with a headache. There we go. And have still like recollection of the night. Oh my gosh. And at one point, they were like laughing and like hyping me up in a sense because I like worked in the kitchen. They were like, people who do what you do just don't get enough credit. And the 55-year-old guy just like kept trying to like hit on me or whatever. And they were like, dude, she's too young for you. And they were like, but she can cook. Listen, she's too old for you, but she's not too young for me. Again, too stunned to speak. I was laughing so hard because they were just too funny. They were too funny. And they asked me like what like sports or whatever I did in high school, and I was like, take a guess. Take a guess. And they said, I feel like you did like I don't, maybe it was just the way I like presented myself or something. But they were like, I feel like he was like, I feel like you were in this is the 24-year-old guy speaking. I feel like you were in maybe like band or basketball and like volleyball even. And I was like, yeah, I was in band as like even like section leader and president too. And I did choir for a little bit, then it just didn't really work with my schedule, so I had to stop. And I did I did soccer for a couple years. I did like the basketball camps, like those like 2-day camps when I was in elementary school. It didn't really ever become my thing. And I never played volleyball. But yeah, it was just pretty much just like band, theater. Those were like my two primary things that I did in high school. And then they asked what my favorite artist was. And I was like, right now, it's probably Harry Styles. And I think it was, I think one of them was like, yeah, and you have to have a little bit of like Beethoven in there too. And I was like, they were just too goofy for their own good. And what it was like the 22-year-old guy literally grabs the stack of paper or like I don't even know the stack of like paper note the notepad thing that is sitting on top of the register, and he grabs the pen that's sitting on the counter, which is just openly sitting on the counter so I can have people like sign receipts. And he's like, what's your like best form of like social media, all slurred because it's hilarious. And I was like, well, I don't really communicate with people on social media. Like, I use my phone number, like, I text people. Like, I really just use social media to just like post things or send funny things to my friends. Like, no. But he writes down his Snapchat as I'm telling him this. And I was internally, I was just like, really? Really, bro? You're 22 and still using Snapchat? No. Red flag. Plus, I'm not even into you like that. Not even into you like that. No. The 55-year-old guy was trying to get my number, which was actually really funny. So nothing ever happened. Like, I never talked to them or saw them again. Who's to say they won't show up while I'm on the clock again? I never know because I know we're having live music and like not this weekend, but next. So that's not going to be good because it's literally on Valentine's Day. Not going to be good. Not going to be good. And I got put on the schedule for the evening again. I don't know. Maybe that just means I'm like good at my job. That's probably what it actually means. Do I like the job? Not necessarily, but I'm good at the job. I don't know. But I mean, I left with a tip record of $53. I beat it by a dollar. I don't know how long ago that record was set. And I think before that it was like 47. So, and that was after I split the tips that night too. That was quite the night. But if it weren't for those like four drunk people, I probably would have like been absolutely miserable when I came home, and I probably would have hated my life. But they made me laugh so hard, and the tacos ended up fine. The tacos ended up fine. They were great, and the girl that ordered them had no problem with them. I wish there was more to the story. Like, I definitely didn't do that story justice, and I didn't. I wish I had like a video of it and I could just like put it on the internet because it was so funny. But I learned the next day when I had to go to work again from 3 to close, send help, but it was kind of slow on Sunday. And I just I close the kitchen whenever my boss tells me to close the kitchen. I think it might have been like 8:30 when he told me to close it down. So, still fine with me. But the same bartender was working and I was like asking about I was asking about them cuz they were the dude was trying to hit on her and I think he was trying to hit on her and her husband was standing right there and yeah, when he found out that that was her husband, he was like, "Oh, crap." And then at some point she told me he threatened to like bite her or something. And then boss slash owner man was like, "Listen, buddy, if you bite or touch any of my employees, I will beat you up and kick you out." And he was like seriously, you're gonna do that? You're gonna get yourself fired. And Mr. Bossman was like, I can't get fired. This is my like I own this business. And I was like, "Mm." I thought that was so funny when she told me that. I don't know how accurate this was, but she told me that that group they all like run the same tab, and their tab ended up being like over $1,000 at the end of the night. That's actually insane. And they went through like probably like 30 cases of beer and like 15 bottles of liquor. Mind you, I think they told me that 15 bottles of liquor is like a little over 30 drinks, give or take. I don't know bar related stuff. I just cook food. But oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Sunday, I can't say I was super super busy. Like I had probably like at least orders wise, I had probably max 3 orders going on at like the busiest time, but it was really just a day to like reorganize and restock everything after the chaos that was the weekend. It was it did its job. It did its job. And then on Monday, I went back to work and I told my salon boss the story of the 3 drunk people and I also told her, I was like, if there's any problem with the food that you ordered, just know it wasn't me. Like, the only thing I touched was your breadsticks. And all I did for that was, like, pretty much just, like, put them in the oven and put garlic butter on them. Like, I didn't do anything. It's just like, no, it was actually, like, really good. And we ended up ordering more. And I was like, really? I don't remember seeing you up at the counter again. And it was probably just one of our friends. That made for quite the day. And then on Tuesday, I was at the salon. Tuesdays are my late nights, and they're not even that late. I'm there until maybe like 7:30 ish at the latest. I don't know, give or take, because working in that business, you don't have a set time to clock out. Really, you're done when you're done. And Tuesday nights is when me and 2 of the other very seasoned stylists are in. And this Tuesday, I was very busy in the evening, which I'm very grateful for because that means I'm doing something right, especially considering, whoa, I've been at that salon for maybe like, I don't know. I think I said this like last week or something, like 4.5 months. I don't know. And excuse me, new salon. I've been in the business for about a year and a half. So things are still they're picking up now because obviously it was slow for like the first year because it was my first year, and then I switched salons, which didn't help the situation any. But plus it's also January, well now it's February, but all of the snowbirds are like down in Florida and whatnot, and everybody just got all done and pampered for Christmas, so yeah, it whatever. But I was actually really busy on Tuesday night, and naturally we got very behind on towels because I was doing a couple of like pedicures throughout the day. And the thing about me is there's like there's I do the most pedicures out of anybody in that building, and people always hype me up because I don't know, mine are just great or whatever. I don't know. I try to stay humble about it because I always feel like somebody's gonna hate it or have something to say, but it's fine. And the thing, just the thing about mine is that I use a lot of towels because the last thing I want, the client wants, both of us need, like, nobody wants like a cold, soggy, wet, dirty towel. So, like, I'm constantly like switching it, and I wouldn't say constantly per se. Plus, there's already two that are going to be wet because they're like hot towels. Yeah. And I just don't play those games of that. So I probably go through like 10 towels. But the night ended. I think I was done with the services themselves at maybe like 7:20 ish. So then I had to clean up all of not only the pedicure stuff, but all of the other nail stuff that I was using before that. And at that point, it was maybe like 7:35 ish, I want to say. And we were very, very, very behind on towels. And I knew I had choir rehearsal at 7:45, but I stayed to fold that a big load of towels that was in the dryer because I really didn't want to screw over the other two girls because they don't deserve that. And I did, in fact, walk into rehearsal late. But you know what? It's fine because we're all adults and they're not gonna kick me out. So whatever. And then oops, we got two new songs for because I don't know we sang a lot for like the big like eventful masses. Like we did the like Christmas Eve, and we're doing like the Easter Vigil and stuff. And then there's of course like the other ones that aren't. I sound hoarse. This is not good. But we got like two new songs or whatever, and they weren't in either of the hymnals. They're like special little papers. So it's songs that it's just the choir singing, whether it's like before mass or whatever. But uh we get to those two songs in the rehearsal lineup because he has all of them right on the board. And he was like, "Does everybody have one of these?" And I'm just like, "No." So he gives me the two of them. And then we get to the second one. And he was just like, "Okay, we're going to do like the refrain and figure out the parts." And I'm pretty good at sight reading and picking it up. Like I hear it maybe like once, maybe twice, and I've got it for the most part. And we do that, and we get through it, and he's like, "Keep going, go into the verse." And I go to flip the paper over, and the back of the paper is blank, and I was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna play this off, and we might do the refrain again, and then I'll just say something." Nope, he wants to go into verse two. So then I nudge the person next to me, and I'm like, "Okay, listen, I need the words," and I flip over my paper to show her that it's blank, and then she starts like laughing while she's singing. And then he cuts us off at the end. And he was like, "Any questions? So far are we good with that?" And I was like, "Yeah, can I get the verses? Like I only like this is all I have." Something like that. Oh, and there was another part in there was at some point where our director was like, and the altos were really just like popping out there, and I was like, I said something. I was like, "You're welcome," or something, or like, "Thank you." And then I immediately covered my mouth, and I was like, that was so loud. And everybody was like looking at me and laughing, and I was like, yeah. There was only three of us altos there that night anyway, instead of like the four. I think one brought her kid or her grandkid because I don't know, they needed supervision. But that made for quite the week. Yesterday was pretty boring. Wait, no, yesterday was Tuesday. No, today's Thursday. Yesterday was Wednesday. I had another shift at the bowling alley last night. Nothing interesting happened. It was all good and fine and dandy. Made a lot of pizza. Pizzas aren't hard. They're just, yeah. Anyway, that's all. I hope you guys enjoyed that insane story of the weekend. I wish I could have done that story more justice. Like if I would have told you, if I would have sat down and told you this story on Monday, it definitely would have been a little bit more put together and a little bit more accurate. But, obviously things have blurred together since then. So, yeah, being hit on by drunk people made for quite the evening. Again, nothing ever happened, but it made me laugh really hard. It was something that was very funny. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you all for being here. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all that jazz. And I will see you next week. Cue the non existent outro.